I'm going to talk a little bit about Tillich's notion of God, ultimate concern, and then his definition of religion. So I'll just take 15, 20 minutes just to talk about that and then open it all up. Now, I'm going to actually use Simone Weil because I've been reading her recently, but it actually is very, very useful for what I'm reading here with Tillich. Basically, so Tillich, he doesn't start with God in his theology. He's not trying to prove the existence of God. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, the idea of proving the existence of God or even talking about God as an object that exists is already a failure. It's already kind of giving ground to a form of new atheism. And so Tillich's trying to do something much more interesting. And there's two notions of God that connect with his two notions of religion. You could say there's the wider definition of God, and then there's the narrower definition of the gods. So we'll start just with God at a very broad level. And the reason why I thought about Simone Weil when I was reading this is because Weil asks this question in Gravity and Grace. What does the miser lose when he loses his treasure? Right? It's a great little riddle, and she's probably thinking of Aesop, who has a parable about that, fable about that. And Simone Weil's answer is really interesting. I've never actually talked about this in this way before, but in reading it more closely, I kind of start to really kind of see something deep in this. Basically, Simone Weil says that the miser, the treasure is neither present nor absent, right? He's got it, but he doesn't have it, right? He's not spending it, and he's not, sorry. Sorry. The miser both has the treasure and also hasn't. It's like a kind of wave particle duality. It's a presence absence duality, right? And this presence absence duality allows the miser to enjoy. It creates a space for desire. So Simone Weil actually thinks the miser is onto something, right? She doesn't want us to be misers, but she finds something in the wisdom of the miser, that the miser realizes that if he spends the money and uses the treasure, then his desire will dissipate. And if the treasure is stolen, the desire will dissipate. So the answer Simone Weil gives is basically the miser loses this object that creates the space of desire through neither being present nor absent. Now then Simone Weil says, right, the main issue for the miser is that treasure can be stolen or it can be spent. So it's a very unstable wave particle duality, or presence absence duality. Sorry, it's very unstable. It can be spent and it can be stolen. And so Simone Weil very cleverly, right, her definition of God is the ground which opens up desire by neither being graspable nor stealable. Right? God is the name she gives to a type of miser's treasure, right? An object that is not, we can't grasp and yet we can't get distance from. And because of this quantum event, this quantum thing, desire opens up. We can enjoy our desire, basically the space of love, the space of want and concern and care are all created in this type of duality, or this type of superpositioning of desire. So I'm using a lot of quantum mechanics language just because it actually is very, very useful for understanding what Simone Weil says. And it's almost a proof for Weil. I mean, she's not trying to give an argument for a proof for the existence of God, but she almost kind of says that desire of the human sort that we see, and I'm using the term desire for Simone Weil, Tillich's going to use the term ultimate concern, but this is almost evidence of a type of oscillation or a type of non-present presence that is part of our human experience. And you can hear me struggling to use the language because it's not objective and it's not purely subjective. This is kind of like it interweaves both the subjective and the objective. So as soon as you render it purely objective, you're losing the wave part or the presence absence duality. But there's something of ultimate concern. It's obviously our desire that's very subjective, and yet the space of desire is opened up because of a type of what Jean-Paul Sartre might say is like the holes in Swiss cheese. There are gaps in being that open things up. Now I'm using that Simone Weil thought on God because it's very similar to what Paul Tillich's talking about when he talks about being estranged from God. God, in the other article that we've looked at, some of us, he says, God is not a stranger that you meet or a stranger that you can run away from. God is that from which we are estranged. And to be estranged is to be part of something and yet not part of it. You're estranged from your family. You're part of your family, and yet there's alienation within your family. And that notion of God as the ground out of which desire and subjectivity grows can help us understand why he focuses on ultimate concern.